Now let me be clear about what comes next. Because there is a particular trap that opens up right at this moment, the moment after the recognition has arrived but before the action has been taken. And it is a trap that is specifically designed for people who are intelligent enough to have done the diagnostic work of part 1. People who now know what the wrong path looks like, what it costs, how self-deception operates. People who have developed, through the work of that first video, a kind of paralysis at the very moment when action is most necessary. The trap is this: understanding the wrong path is not the same as knowing what the right one is. And the mind that has just been confronted with the full, honest, uncomfortable picture of what not to do can very easily slide into a new form of inaction. Not the old, comfortable inaction of someone who hasn't looked. The new, more sophisticated inaction of someone who has looked so hard at the wrong path that they've convinced themselves they need to be certain about the right one before they take a single step. Certainty is not available to you. It never was. It never is. Not at any crossroads, not in any genuinely significant decision, not for any person who is operating with intellectual honesty about the limits of what can be known before a commitment is made. What is available to you is something more powerful than certainty. Something that certainty, with its false promise of complete safety, actually works against. What is available to you is clarity. Genuine, earned, honest clarity about your real values, your real strengths, your real motivation, and the specific quality of aligned direction that no amount of wrong path momentum can produce. That is what this video gives you. Not certainty, clarity. Not a guarantee, a method. Not an escape from difficulty, the specific, practical, Machiavellian approach to reading a path before you walk it, finding the direction that is genuinely yours, choosing it with full information rather than comfortable momentum, and building forward with the particular energy that is only available to a person who is moving in a direction that is actually theirs. Machiavelli was a strategist. A man who dealt in method, not in hope. Who looked at a desired outcome and worked backward: what needs to happen? In what order? Against what resistance? With what resources? No sentiment. No wishful thinking. No theory that cannot be tested against the brutal reality of actual human experience. That is the approach this video takes to the question of finding and walking the right path. Not inspirational. Operational. What do you do? Specifically. In what sequence? With what tools? Toward what end? Let us work. Drop this in the comments: I am done diagnosing. I am ready to build. Part 1. Seeing a path clearly before you walk it. The first and most fundamental tool in this entire video is not a motivational framework. It is not a set of questions to journal about. It is a discipline of perception, a specific way of looking at a path that strips away everything that the wrong path uses to seduce you and reveals, as cleanly as any method can, what is actually there. Machiavelli called this seeing things as they are. And he devoted more pages, more energy, more insistence in his writing to this single principle than to almost anything else. Because he understood that the failure to do it, the failure to look at your actual situation with genuinely clear eyes rather than eyes distorted by wish or fear or social pressure, was the root cause of virtually every preventable failure he had ever witnessed. The method has 4 components. Each one addresses a specific form of distortion that the wrong path uses to hide itself. The first component is the creation of deliberate psychological distance. You cannot see a path clearly while you are inside your emotional investment in it. The investment tilts the perception. It makes you notice the confirming evidence and discount the disconfirming. It makes the parts that are right feel larger than they are and the parts that are wrong feel smaller. It makes the discomfort of the voice feel like nervousness rather than what it actually is. To create psychological distance, you need to practice looking at your situation from the outside. Not from the outside of complete emotional detachment, that is impossible and would produce a different kind of distortion. From the outside of someone who loves you completely, who is invested in your genuine well-being rather than your short-term comfort, and who has no stake in which direction you choose. Imagine that person. Not necessarily someone in your actual life, though if you have someone like this, use them. But even a hypothetical version. The most honest, most perceptive, most genuinely caring presence you can imagine. Now ask, what would they see when they look at this path? Not what they would tell you, necessarily, what would they actually see? What would they worry about in private? What questions would they wish you were asking? What pattern would they recognize that your emotional proximity to the situation is preventing you from seeing? The answers that surface from this exercise are not infallible. But they are significantly less distorted than the answers you produce from inside the investment. And significantly less distorted is often enough to see what needs to be seen. The second component is the honest tracing of consequences. This requires you to follow the path forward in time, not to where you hope it leads, but to where its actual logic leads. Not the first-order consequences, which are usually visible and are usually the ones driving the decision. The second and third-order consequences. The ones further down the path. The ones that are obscured by distance and uncertainty but that become, with honest reasoning, predictable from the nature of the path itself. Whoever wishes to foresee the future must consult the past, for human events ever resemble those of preceding times. This is not fatalism, it is method. Trace the pattern of the path honestly, and the path will tell you where it goes. Trace it specifically. 1 year from now, if you walk this path, where are you? Not where you hope to be, where the logic of the path actually places you. What is the daily reality of your life? What do you spend your hours doing? What does it require of you? What does it develop in you and what does it prevent? Now 3 years. Now 5. Now 10. Build the picture honestly, using what you actually know about how this type of path unfolds rather than what you hope it will do in your specific case. If the honest picture at 5 years is one you are genuinely glad to inhabit, not resigned to tolerate, not hoping will eventually feel right, but genuinely glad, that is significant information in favor of the path. If the honest picture produces a sense of quiet dread that you immediately rush to paper over with the language of eventual reward and eventual alignment, that is the path telling you something critical about itself. The third component is the examination of your real motivation. Not the stated motivation, the one you have rehearsed for the people who ask. The actual motivation. The thing that is genuinely driving this decision at the level where the voice operates rather than at the level where the social performance lives. Ask yourself 2 questions. Not one, both. What am I moving toward? And what am I moving away from? Because these are different forces. And the decision driven primarily by what it is moving away from, the desire to escape an existing discomfort, to end an existing uncertainty, to stop being the person who hasn't yet chosen, is a fundamentally different decision than the one driven by genuine attraction to what lies ahead. Both can produce the same external behavior. Only the internal examination reveals which is operating. The path chosen in flight, in the escape from something, will carry the thing being escaped with it. Because the escape was never really about the destination. It was about the unbearable quality of staying where you were. And that unbearable quality travels. The fourth component is the test of the quiet rightness. This one is the hardest to describe precisely and the most important to feel accurately. There is a specific quality to genuine alignment with a path, a quality that is distinguishable, however subtly, from the relief of having chosen anything. It is quieter. Less dramatic. More internal. It feels less like excitement. Excitement is available on wrong paths, and more like recognition. Like something settling into place rather than something being claimed. Like coming toward something rather than running away from it. You may have felt this before. In moments when a direction, an idea, a specific type of work, a particular kind of relationship felt not just appealing but right. Not in the performed sense, in the honest sense. Not as something you wanted to want, but as something you simply, genuinely, completely wanted. The test of the quiet rightness is asking, does this path produce that feeling? Not the excitement. The recognition. The settling. The genuine, not performed, yes. Use these for components together. On the specific path in front of you. With the honesty that the stakes demand. The method will not give you certainty. But it will give you the clearest possible picture of what is actually in front of you, unfiltered by the seduction of the wrong path, undistorted by the social investment, unmistaken by urgency for alignment. And the clearest possible picture is all you need to choose well. Drop this in the comments, I see the path clearly. Undistorted. As it actually is. Part 2, what changing course actually means. If the method has shown you what you suspected, if the honest examination has confirmed what the voice has been saying, then there is something we need to address directly before we go any further. Because the seeing is one thing. The acting on what you see is another. And between those two things there is a specific form of resistance that stops more people at more crossroads than any other single force. It is the belief, embedded so deeply in the culture of persistence and not giving up and staying the course, that changing direction is the same as failing. This belief is one of the most expensive lies available to a human being. And I want to dismantle it with the precision it deserves. The story we are told about success, through every narrative, every biography, every culture of achievement we inhabit, is the story of the person who kept going. Who pushed through doubt and difficulty and the voices that told them to stop. Who stayed on the path when everyone else quit. Who trusted the direction when the direction was hard. And the people in those stories did win. Some of them. Because some paths that feel wrong are simply difficult. Because some doubt is exactly the predictable friction of a genuinely right thing that demands real effort. But there is another story. Told far less often. About the people who had the clarity, the specific, honest, earned clarity of someone who had looked carefully at the path and seen it accurately, to recognize that what they were walking was not difficult but wrong. Not challenging but misaligned. Not the right thing being hard but the wrong thing being anything at all. And those people turned. They absorbed the discomfort of the changed direction. They sat with the awkwardness of the explanations. They tolerated the period of uncertainty that follows any genuine exit from a wrong momentum. And they walked back to the fork and chose again, this time with the honest self-knowledge that the first choice, for whatever reasons, did not have. Those people are not failures. They are some of the most practically intelligent, most genuinely self-aware, most actually courageous human beings that exist. Because the failure is not the change direction. The failure is the wrong path continued past the moment of clear recognition. The failure is the voice heard and ignored. The failure is the years spent walking away from yourself because turning back looked too much like giving up. It is better to be impetuous than cautious, for fortune is a woman, and she favors those who strike rather than those who hesitate. But Machiavelli also knew this, the strike of the wise is the decision made clearly, at the right moment, without the paralysis of pride. Even if that decision is to turn back. What does changing direction actually cost? Let me give you the real number. Because the number lives inside most people's minds as enormous, as catastrophic, as a social and emotional cost that justifies years of additional wrong path walking rather than be paid. The actual cost is a period of transition. Of uncomfortable conversations with people who thought they knew where you were going. Of renegotiating expectations, your own and others. of standing in the temporary, disorienting, genuinely uncomfortable space between a direction you have left and a direction you have not yet fully entered. Of being, for a while, someone whose story has changed. That is the real cost. Not permanent damage to your reputation. The people whose respect you genuinely want will respect the courage of the honest choice, even when they don't immediately understand it. Not the loss of all previous investment, the things you learned on the wrong path, the relationships you built, the capabilities you developed, they come with you. Not the permanent closing of every door the wrong path was heading toward. Some will close, honestly acknowledged, but far fewer than the catastrophizing mind insists on believing. The real cost is temporary discomfort. Measured against the alternative cost, the years, the identity shaped by the wrong direction, the voice trained into silence, the person you become while walking away from yourself, the real cost of changing direction is almost insultingly small. It is a period of discomfort in exchange for the recovery of your actual life. And here is what the people who have made this turn will tell you, if they are honest and if enough time has passed. The discomfort of the transition was real. But it was finite. And on the other side of it was something that the wrong path, for all its gifts and its comfort and its social validation, could never have produced. A quality of internal alignment. A sense of moving in a direction that was actually chosen rather than inherited or defaulted into. A relationship with themselves, with their own honesty, their own clarity, their own voice, that was repaired rather than progressively damaged. That repair is worth the transition. Every time. Without exception. Change direction when the method tells you to. Not impulsively, with the deliberate, honest, examined certainty that what you are leaving is wrong. But do not let the discomfort of the change be mistaken for evidence that the change is wrong. The discomfort of leaving the wrong path is the price of freedom. It is not a sign that the door should stay closed. Drop this in the comments. Changing direction is not failure. It is the first honest choice I have made. Part 3. The internal inventory. Now we come to the work that most people skip. The work that is unglamorous and unhurried and requires the kind of patient, honest, non-judgmental self-examination that modern life is specifically designed to prevent. The work of actually knowing yourself. Not the performed self. Not the self that exists in the story you tell at dinner parties or the bio you maintain online. The actual self. The one that has preferences and values and genuine capacities and real limits and a specific direction of pull that, when it is not being overridden by social performance or fear or someone else's expectations, points consistently toward something. Finding the right path requires finding that self first. And most people have not done this work, not really. Not with the depth and honesty that the stakes demand. They have a rough sketch of themselves assembled from the outside in, from what they've been told they're good at, from the roles they've been assigned, from the version of themselves that has been socially reinforced. But the rough sketch and the actual person are not the same thing. And the right path is not a path for the rough sketch. It is a path for the real person. The internal inventory has 3 levels. Each one goes deeper than the previous. Each one requires more honesty and produces more valuable information. The first level is genuine values. Not stated values, actual ones. The things that, when they are present in your daily life, produce a sense of rightness, of being in the right place, of being engaged with something that matters. And the things that, when they are absent, produce the specific quality of incompleteness that no amount of external success can quite paper over. The distinction between stated values and actual values is critical. Stated values are the things you say when someone asks what you care about. Actual values are what your daily choices reveal. Where your energy goes without effort. What you notice when you walk into a room. What problems pull your genuine attention? What work you do that makes time disappear? These are not always the same as what you say you value. And the path built on stated values is not the same path as the one built on actual ones. Examine the gap. With real honesty. Not to judge yourself for it, the gap between stated and actual values is nearly universal, and it is not a moral failure. But to use it as the specific information it is. The actual values point toward something real. The stated values point toward something performed. The right path is built on the actual ones. A man who is not satisfied in himself will always be seeking satisfaction outside himself. The man who knows himself clearly, who has done the honest, patient work of genuine self-examination, does not need to search outside. He has never needed to. He simply had not yet been quiet enough to hear what he already knew. The second level is genuine strengths. Again, not credentialed strengths. Not the skills on your resume or the capabilities that your educational or professional history has formalized. Your actual strengths. The things you do with a quality of ease and natural precision that is genuinely different from how other people do them. The things that would improve even without external measurement or incentive, because the doing itself is its own reward. The things that, when you are doing them well, produce a sense of being exactly what you were built to do rather than what you were trained to do. These two things, genuine values and genuine strengths, are the starting point of the right path. Not because the right path is defined only by what you value and what you're good at, but because a path that does not engage your genuine values and genuine strengths is not aligned at its foundation. And unaligned foundations, however attractive the structure built on them appears, eventually produce the specific kind of collapse that the wrong path is famous for. The third level is the honest understanding of what you are building toward. Not in the distant, vague, aspirational sense. In the specific, felt sense of the kind of life you are genuinely trying to construct. What does it look like in concrete terms, not the Instagram version, the actual daily version? What do you want your hours to feel like? What quality of engagement do you want with your work? What kind of relationships do you want to be surrounded by? What kind of impact, however small or large, do you want to be producing? What do you want to be able to say, honestly, when someone who genuinely knows you asks how your life is going? The right path is the one that builds toward those answers. The one that, when honestly traced forward, arrives somewhere in the vicinity of that life, not perfectly, not without difficulty, but directionally. Pointing the right way. Moving toward rather than away from the genuine picture. Conduct this inventory. Take the time it requires. Resist the temptation to do it quickly, to produce the answers the performing mind is ready to supply, to settle for the rough sketch rather than the real portrait. The real portrait is what you need. And it is available, if you are willing to sit with the question long enough for the performing mind to exhaust itself and the honest one to speak. Drop this in the comments: I know what I actually value. I know what I actually have. I build from that. Part 4: Recognizing the right path when it appears. There is a question that almost everyone asks when they're doing the work of finding their right path. A question that feels urgent and reasonable, and that is, in its most anxious form, one of the primary sources of the paralysis that keeps people stuck at the crossroads long after the examination has given them enough to act on. The question is, how will I know? How will I know when the path in front of me is the right one? How will I distinguish it from another version of the seduction we examined in Part 1, another wrong path wearing the costume of clarity? How will I trust a feeling when I have just spent an entire video learning how feelings can be manufactured, distorted, bypassed? How will I avoid trading one form of self-deception for another? These are not naive questions. They are the right questions. And they deserve a real answer. The right path announces itself differently from the wrong one. Not dramatically, not with the fanfare and excitement and social validation that the wrong path often brings. differently, in specific, recognizable, learnable ways. And once you know what to look for, once you can feel the distinction rather than just think about it, the signal becomes genuinely reliable. The first distinguishing quality is what I call the settled energy. Wrong paths tend to produce a kind of high energy, anxious enthusiasm in their early stages. An excitement that is slightly too intense, slightly too performable, slightly too dependent on the validation and excitement of the people around you. An energy that surges when you are talking about the path to someone who affirms it and subsides when you are alone with it in the quiet. The right path produces something quieter and more stable. A settled sense of rightness that does not require continuous external fuel. An energy that is present in the private moments as much as in the social ones. That is not extinguished by honest examination. In fact, it tends to survive honest examination better than the wrong path's excitement does. The more clearly you look at the right path, the more right it tends to feel. The more clearly you look at the wrong path, the more the initial excitement gives way to the persistent, quiet discomfort of something that is fundamentally misaligned. The second quality is what I call the recognition rather than revelation. Most people expect the right path to arrive as a revelation, a moment of dramatic clarity in which everything suddenly becomes obvious and the direction is unmistakable. This happens. But it is rarer than the other form. More often, the right path arrives as recognition. As something that, when it presents itself, produces not a sense of discovering something new but a sense of recognizing something already known. Fortune shows her power when there is no organized virtue to resist her, and thither she turns her forces where she knows that barriers and defenses have not been raised. The right path is the one you have been building toward in the honest core of yourself all along. When it appears, it does not feel like a discovery. It feels like a return. That feeling of return is one of the most reliable signals available. When a direction feels not like an exciting new adventure but like coming home, not in the sense of comfort and ease, because the right path has its own genuine difficulty, but in the sense of finally being where you were pointed all along, pay attention to that feeling. It is not manufactured. It is not produced by social validation or by the relief of finally having chosen anything. It is the internal signal of something that fits in the deepest way available. The third quality is tolerance of examination. The wrong path tends to feel less right the more carefully you look at it. The right path tends to feel more right, or at least no less right, as the examination becomes more honest. If a direction can withstand the four-component method from part 1 of this video, the psychological distance, the honest consequence tracing, the examination of real motivation, the test of the quiet rightness, and still feel genuinely aligned on the other side of that examination, that is significant. That is not a guarantee. But it is the best available signal that the path is what it appears to be. The fourth quality is proportional investment appetite. The right path tends to produce a genuine willingness to invest in it, not the desperate, sunk cost-fueled investment of someone who needs the wrong path to pay off. A different kind. The willingness to put in real effort not because you need the outcome to justify the past investment but because the work itself, in the right direction, is intrinsically worth doing. The investment feels like building rather than buying. Like contributing to something real rather than paying for the maintenance of a story. When you find a direction that has these four qualities, the settled energy, the recognition, the tolerance of examination, and the genuine investment appetite, trust it. Not blindly. Not without the ongoing application of honest self-examination. But trust it as a genuine signal worth acting on. Because it is not common. And when it appears, it deserves the courage of a first step. Drop this in the comments: I recognize the quiet rightness. And I choose to trust it. Part 5, Machiavelli's Counsel on Counsel. One of the most underestimated factors in the quality of a major decision is the quality of the people involved in making it. Not because any other person can make this decision for you, no one can, and the abdication of your own judgment to any external authority is itself a form of the wrong path. But because the right external perspectives, offered by the right people under the right conditions, genuinely expand what you can see from inside your own situation. Machiavelli was precise about this. Remarkably precise. He devoted significant attention to the question of counsel, who to seek it from, under what conditions, with what protections against the specific ways that external advice tends to distort rather than clarify. And his observations are as accurate today as they were in 16th century Florence, because the dynamics of human advice-giving have not changed. Most people's process of consultation looks like this. They share their decision, or the possibility they're considering, with the people who are most available. Their partner, their closest friends, their family. They ask what those people think. And those people tell them. With all the love and care and genuine concern that characterizes those relationships. And also with all the self-interest, the projection, the fear, the unexamined assumptions, the stakes they have in the outcome, that characterize those relationships too. The partner who is afraid of change will counsel caution. The friend who made a similar choice and is invested in its having been right will affirm the direction. The parent whose hopes and fears about your life are thoroughly tangled with their own will give advice that addresses their anxiety more than your actual situation. The colleague whose professional incentives are entangled with your decision will offer a perspective colored by those incentives without either of you necessarily being fully aware that the coloring is happening. This is not a criticism of those people. They are giving you what they have. But what they have is filtered through who they are and what they need and what they are afraid of in a way that makes their counsel, for a decision this significant, genuinely limited as a navigational instrument. The first opinion formed of a ruler's intelligence is based on the men he has around him. If they are capable and loyal, he may always be considered wise, because he knew how to recognize them and keep them faithful. But no matter how good his advisors, the prince who abandons his own judgment entirely to them is lost. Machiavelli's prescription for quality counsel has three components. The first is the selection of advisors who have the three essential qualities: deep enough knowledge of you as a specific person to give advice that is calibrated rather than generic, enough honesty and courage to tell you what they actually see rather than what they think you want to hear, and a genuine freedom from stake in your decision, an investment in your actual well-being rather than in any particular outcome. How many people in your life have all three of these qualities? For most people, the honest answer is one or two. Possibly fewer. This is important information. Not because it means you are surrounded by poor people, it means that the people available to you for the most important decisions may not, despite their genuine care, be the right people for this specific kind of counsel. The second component is the conditions under which counsel is sought. Machiavelli was clear that the best counsel is given in conditions that make honesty not just possible but expected. Where the advisor knows they have been specifically invited to tell you what they actually think, including the hard things. Where the social contract of the conversation is not I share, you affirm, but I share, you examine, and you tell me what you genuinely see. Most conversations about major decisions are not structured this way. They are structured, implicitly, by the social dynamics of how we share important personal information, as sharing, not genuine examination. The expectation is that the listener will be supportive. And being supportive, in the implicit social contract of most relationships, means affirming the direction rather than questioning it. Which means that most of the external consultation most people conduct about their most important decisions is not actually consultation at all. It is a social performance of decision-making that produces the emotional validation of being heard without the navigational value of being honestly assessed. The third component, and this is the one that Machiavelli considered most critical, is the protection of your own final judgment. No matter how good your advisors, no matter how honest and perceptive and genuinely caring the people you have around you, their counsel is input, not instruction. Their perspective is information, not authority. The final judgment is yours. Always. And the capacity to hear counsel honestly, use it precisely, and then close the loop with your own clear decision is one of the specific capacities that the work of Part 1 and Part 2 of this video was building toward. If you do not currently have people in your life who meet the criteria for genuine counsel, and many people, particularly in periods of significant life transition, do not, then the most reliable counselor you have is the one who has been with you longest. The one whose track record of honest assessment, however uncomfortable, has proven more reliable than every other voice combined. The internal one. The voice that Part 1 helped you hear again. Trust it. More than any external voice at this crossroads. It has never stopped telling you the truth. Drop this in the comments, I choose my counsel wisely. The final judgment is always mine. Part 6, Building the Right Path one honest step at a time. The right path is not found and then walked. It is built. And this distinction, between finding a path and building one, is one of the most important shifts available to you as you move from the crossroads into forward motion. The language of finding a path implies that the path exists in its complete form somewhere, waiting to be discovered. That if you look in the right place with the right instruments you will come across it fully formed, clear, visible, confirmed, ready to be walked with the confidence of someone who knows where they are going. This is the version of the crossroads that most people are waiting for. The revelation. The sign. The moment of unmistakable certainty that makes the first step easy. That moment does not come. Not in the form most people are waiting for. Not with the clarity and completeness and certainty that would make the first step feel safe. The right path presents itself not as a complete route but as a first step in the right direction. And the second step only becomes visible once the first has been taken. And the third only once the second has been completed. The path is revealed by walking, not before it. This means that the construction of the right path requires a specific quality that is different from any of the qualities we have discussed so far. Not insight. Not self-knowledge. Not the honest examination of motivation or values or strengths. All of those are necessary. But the quality that actually gets you moving, that converts everything you have discovered in the work of this video into actual forward motion, is the willingness to begin with incomplete information. To take the first step toward the direction that the internal inventory and the method and the quiet rightness are pointing to, without the complete picture, without the guarantee, without the certainty that the first step will be followed by a visible second. To act on what you know rather than waiting for what you don't yet know. To treat the first step not as a commitment to a complete route but as a single honest investment in a direction that feels genuinely aligned. Make no small plans, for they have no power to stir the blood. But above all, make no false plans, and no plans that require you to be someone you are not before you can begin. Begin as you are. The path is built by the person who starts, not by the person who is ready. The construction of the right path proceeds in a specific sequence. The first element is the smallest viable first step. Not the plan. Not the strategy. Not the complete roadmap. The single, smallest, most honest action that is available to you right now that is pointed in the right direction. Something specific enough to be done in the next week. Something that requires genuine commitment but does not require you to have resolved every uncertainty before it can be taken. The smallest viable first step is powerful precisely because of its modesty. It does not ask you to transform your entire life immediately. It does not require you to have achieved complete clarity before you act. It asks only for one genuine, honest, forward-pointed action. And that action, however small, does something that no amount of further deliberation can do. It creates evidence. Evidence that you are actually moving in the right direction. Evidence for your own mind, the one that has been running on the wrong path operating system for so long that it needs to see what the alternative looks like before it will update the model. Each step in the right direction deposits into the account of your new identity. Evidence that you are the person the internal inventory said you were. Evidence that the values and strengths you identified in the honest examination are real and operative. Evidence that the quiet rightness was not an illusion but a genuine signal of something that, when you move toward it, actually feels like what it promised. The second element is the honest assessment after each step. Not the anxious, success-hunting assessment of someone who needs the first step to have been perfect. The genuine assessment of someone who is using each step as a source of information. What did this step reveal about the direction? Did the movement toward it feel more aligned or less aligned than the honest examination predicted? What did you learn about the path by being on it that you could not learn from looking at it? What does that learning suggest about the next step? This assessment, conducted with honesty and without the distortion of either excessive self-criticism or excessive self-protection, is how the path gets built. Not through a single grand strategy executed flawlessly. Through the accumulation of genuinely examined steps. Each one informing the next. Each one depositing evidence. Each one building the path one honest, real, forward-pointed brick at a time. The third element is patience with nonlinearity. The right path is not a straight line. It will not proceed from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 with the clean, progressive, visible clarity of a well-executed plan. It will have detours. Setbacks. Steps that do not produce what was expected and require revision. Periods of slower progress that feel like stalling. Moments when the uncertainty of the right direction feels almost indistinguishable from the uncertainty of having no direction at all. This is not evidence that the path is wrong. This is what the right path looks like from inside the building. Non-linear. Iterative. Requiring ongoing honest assessment rather than a single upfront decision that can then be executed without further examination. The person who expects a straight line will mistake every curve for being lost. The person who understands the nonlinearity will recognize each curve for what it is, not a wrong turn but the path adjusting to the actual terrain. Drop this in the comments. I begin with one honest step in the right direction. Right now. Part 7. Choosing your environment as strategically as your path. There is a dimension of the right path that most people think about only after they have started walking it, when the evidence of its importance is already compounding. It is the environment in which the path is being walked. The people, the spaces, the conversations, the mirrors, the external world that is constantly reflecting information about who you are and what is possible for you back at you. Most people treat their environment as a backdrop to their life. As the setting in which the important things happen. As something largely fixed and largely irrelevant to the quality of the choices being made. This is one of the most expensive misunderstandings available at a crossroads. Your environment is not a backdrop. It is an active participant in every decision you make. The people you spend the most time with are constantly sending you information, explicit and implicit, about what is normal, what is possible, what is desirable, what is realistic, what is worth wanting, what is worth attempting, what kind of person you are and what kind of person you might become. And your mind, being the pattern recognition machine it is, absorbs that information and incorporates it into the operating model whether you consciously intend it to or not. This means that choosing your environment is not separate from choosing your path. It is part of the same decision. An environment organized around the wrong path will pull you back toward it even after you have left it. An environment organized around people who are further along the right path will pull you forward even when your own momentum is insufficient. Think about the specific environment you currently inhabit. Not in the abstract, specifically. The people you spend the most time with. The conversations you regularly have. The social roles you are expected to perform. The stories about you that circulate in your immediate world. Ask, does this environment reflect who you are becoming or who you have been? Does it make the right path feel possible, or does it make it feel exceptional, belonging to other people in other circumstances rather than to the person you are right now? The main foundations of every state, new states as well as ancient or composite ones, are good laws and good arms. You cannot have good laws without good arms, and where there are good arms, good laws inevitably follow. The same principle applies to a life. You cannot build something excellent in an environment that does not support excellence. Build the environment first. The strategic management of your environment does not mean abandoning every relationship that belongs to your past or burning down every context that knew the wrong path version of you. Some of those relationships can grow with you. Some of those people, given the honest conversation about where you are and where you are going, will be your most important allies in the right direction. These are worth investing in. Worth the sometimes difficult conversation. Worth the vulnerability of being seen in the process of changing rather than only in the destination of having changed. But some contexts genuinely cannot hold the right path. Some environments are so thoroughly organized around the wrong path version of you, the limited version, the version that was predictable, unavailable, and defined by the worst chapter rather than by the genuine potential, that inhabiting them fully while building the right path is not possible. Not because the people are bad. Because the environment's operating assumptions about who you are cannot accommodate who you are becoming. And every time you return to it, you are asked, implicitly and sometimes explicitly, to perform the old version. And performing the old version is not a neutral act. It is the opposite of building the new one. Be deliberate about your mirrors. About who you spend the most time with. About whose narratives about you and about what is possible you are willing to inhabit. About which rooms you walk into where the version of you that lives in those rooms is the right path version. And which ones you walk into where the wrong path version reasserts itself the moment you cross the threshold. Cure it with the strategic precision that Machiavelli would bring to any question of resource management. Because your environment is a resource. And like all resources, it either amplifies your capacity or depletes it. Choose accordingly. Drop this in the comments: I build my environment as deliberately as I build my path. Part 8. Who you become by choosing clearly. We have covered an enormous amount of ground across these two videos. The seduction of the wrong path. The 5 forms it takes. The voice that already knows and the reasons it gets ignored. The architectures of self-deception. The real arithmetic of what the wrong path costs. The Machiavellian method for seeing clearly. The courage of the change direction. The internal inventory. The quiet rightness. The construction of the path one honest step at a time. The strategic management of the environment. Now let me close with what all of this is actually for. Not the method, the destination. Not the process, the person. Picture the person who did all of this work. Who came to a crossroads, this crossroads, your crossroads, and who stopped, and looked, and listened, and stripped away the deceits, and heard the voice, and calculated the real arithmetic, and chose. Not perfectly. Not with certainty. But honestly. With the full application of the method. With the courage of someone who understood that the discomfort of the clear choice, however significant, was smaller than the cost of the comfortable wrong one. Picture that person 5 years from now. What are they doing? They are doing work that is genuinely theirs. Not perfect work, there is no perfect work, and the right path has its own genuine difficulty, its own real demands, its own specific challenges that the wrong path would have avoided. But work that uses their real capacities in service of something they actually care about. Work that pulls their full engagement. Work that, when they do it well, produces not just the satisfaction of accomplished results but the deeper satisfaction of being the right person doing the right thing. They are in relationships that were entered from honest ground. Not relationships built in the urgency of escape or the desperation of loneliness or the performance of the wrong path identity. Relationships that were chosen by the honest version of themselves, the one who had done the work of self-knowledge and was showing up as something real rather than something performed. Relationships that carry the specific quality of mutual genuine recognition, the sense that the person across from you sees you accurately, not the curated version, and chooses you anyway. Those relationships are rare. And they are available only to the person who is showing up as something real. One change always leaves the way open for the establishment of others. Begin with one honest choice, one genuine, clear-eyed choice made from self-knowledge rather than social pressure, and watch how many of the others become available in its wake. That person has something that cannot be purchased, cannot be performed, cannot be acquired by walking any path that isn't genuinely theirs. It is the relationship with themselves of someone who, when it mattered, when the crossroads was real and the stakes were high and the comfortable choice was available and the right choice was harder, chose truth. Who chose the voice over the noise? Who chose genuine direction over comfortable momentum? Who treated themselves, at the most important moment, with the honesty they would have given to someone they loved completely? That relationship, between yourself and your own honesty, is the most important one available to you. More important than any external relationship, however significant. Because it is the foundation of everything else. The quality of every choice you make from here depends on whether you can trust your own clearest signal. Whether you can hear the voice and follow it. Whether you have the habit, built through practice, through exactly this kind of crossroads decision, of acting on what you know rather than what is comfortable. The person on the other side of this choice has that foundation. Has built it, brick by brick, through exactly the work this video has been asking you to do. Has developed the specific, practical, lived capacity to stand at a crossroads and see clearly. To strip away the seduction. To hear the voice. To choose. That capacity compounds. Every time you use it, it gets stronger. Every time you choose honest direction over comfortable momentum, the next choice becomes a little clearer. Every time you trust the voice becomes a little easier to hear. Every time you conduct the honest examination rather than the validating one, the examination becomes a little more natural, a little less effortful, a little more like simply the way you make decisions rather than a demanding discipline you have to consciously practice. That is the person on the other side. Not someone who never faces difficult crossroads again. Someone for whom difficult crossroads are genuinely navigable. Someone who has the tools, the honesty, and the practiced courage to stop and look and choose, every time, without exception, in the direction that is actually theirs. The path is still in front of you. The torch is still burning. The fork is still exactly where it was when this video began. The difference is that now you know what you are looking at. You know what the seduction feels like and how to see through it. You know what the voice sounds like and why it is reliable. You know what it costs to ignore it and what becomes possible when you don't. You know the method and you know how to apply it and you know what the quiet rightness feels like when the direction is actually yours. You have everything you need. You have had everything you need for longer than this video has been running. The only remaining question is the one that has been waiting for you at this crossroads all along. Are you going to choose clearly? Drop this in the comments. I choose clearly. I choose honestly. I choose the path that is truly mine. That is the complete method. 2 videos. 40 minutes each. The full Machiavellian guide to the crossroads, the warning and the way forward. Across these 2 videos you have done something that most people at a crossroads never do. You looked honestly. At the seduction and the cost and the self-deception and the voice and the real arithmetic and the method for seeing clearly and the path forward and who you become when you have the courage to choose it. That was not passive watching. That was work. And the evidence of whether the work was real will not appear in this comment section or in any conversation you have today. It will appear in the decision you make at the crossroads you came here carrying. In whether the choice, when you make it, is made from the honest version of yourself or from the comfortable one. In whether the path you walk from here is the one that is genuinely yours. That is the only measure that matters. Subscribe if this series changed something in you. Not as a courtesy, as a commitment to continuing this work. Because the crossroads does not end. The capacity to navigate it clearly, honestly, with the full application of genuine self-knowledge, is a skill that needs ongoing development. And this channel is where that development happens. Drop your affirmation in the comments. Tell me what you are choosing. Tell me what path you are walking toward. Tell me what you are leaving behind. I read every one. And they matter more than you know.